Hey, miracle makers. I hope that you guys got it too. We're here on Thursday night here in West Palm Beach. And anyway, we're going to go through the 50 miracle principles together here. And I just want to really connect with you. Again, I know that we have, without about 2 weeks with no class because of Hurricane Irma. And we all love Irma, don't we? Huh? Yes, maybe. And so, look, I actually, 4 people today say, don't forget about talking about the hurricane, you know. And so here's the deal from a Course in Miracles standpoint. By the way, if you want to give your perspective before I give mine, you're welcome to do. No, nobody wants to do that. That's fine. Okay, here's, look, you're not going to like what I'm going to say here, but I'm going to say it. Everything that we are experiencing within time and space is an effect. Okay, that's it. Now, ultimately, what we really want to interact with in this world is the mind of Christ. That we see it in every single energy that comes and arises within our field of awareness. So then, we're dealing with Hurricane Irma. We're dealing with a earthquake in Mexico. And everybody's looking at it as something that is separate from them. And this is an hallucination. So let me just say this in a different way. What we are experiencing in this world is nothing more than an outward picture of an inward condition. Okay? So when a hurricane occurs in my life, I have to say, oh, that thing, that energy that is arising in my field of awareness, it's coming from my mind, my one mind that I'm joined with everybody in. So I have to look at myself and say, okay, Kevin, you've got Hurricane Irma right there. What is that? That is an archetype of something that is happening within your own mind. So Kevin, have you ever had a moment where your mental thoughts or your mindset or your state of awareness that looks like an internal hurricane that is occurring? And the answer is, oh, of course, yes, that occurs in my mind all the time. Kevin, have you experienced a mental state or a psyche within your egoic thinking from time to time in which you are experiencing internally an earthquake? Internally? Yes, I experienced it today, twice, okay? So now the point is this, when I individually or collectively am seeing and knowing that I'm seeing something quote unquote externally, I have to immediately, and I have to make it my default every single second of every minute of every hour of every day. What is within me that produced this? So to be a little bit more authentic, by the way, I don't know, Lori, for instance, whether you're aware of the Way of Mastery. Are you? But you're going to know it pretty well.
Love it, Lori.
Unbelievable. By the way, thank you so much, Roberta, by the way, for this book. But as I'm going through this is A Course in Miracles in a very, I would say, raw way. Okay. It's really in your face. So as I was going through the Way of Mastery and A Course in Miracles, you know, I just want to be aware that if I'm not acting as the Christ incarnate, which I am, and so are you, and so is everybody else here, and are experiencing this with us, I have to say that this is my default every day. That I've got, and by the way, I'm mentioning the Way of Mastery because it's really mentioned in it very thoroughly. That, yeah, I have to admit to myself that in this world, I've got I've got to admit that I have miscreated something in my world, and also I have created the world as well. So when I acknowledge 100% that I am fully responsible for what I am experiencing in this world, in this realm, when I take ownership to it, then I'm free. Because it's not necessary for me anytime to blame other people from what I'm experiencing internally. Okay? It's useless. Because I have accepted, and so are you as well, your identity as the son and the daughter of God. And when we know that, when we remember who we are as we interact with other people, then we begin to change our perceptions. And we begin to align our thoughts with the thought of God. We begin to change our will to be in alignment with the will of God. Not my will, but thine be done. So I don't know what the hell is going on in this world, okay? This is why mystics say it all the time. All is well, but the world is a mess. Okay? Because we have to acknowledge that we have participated in this world birthing thoughts of death, of murder, of earthquakes, of hurricanes, everything. Why? Because we took a route into, and a detour into fear. And by doing so, we have, because everything that we think in our minds creates something on some level in our experience. Yeah.
No, it's just all coming to me because I've been saying for so long with all these natural events, these catastrophic, horrific events, that...
I'm sorry, just give me 1 second here. I want to make sure I got you 100% here. I just heard something come out of this. Now, go ahead.
Okay, it just makes me realize more and more now, with all that's been going on in the country, the wildfires, the earthquakes, the hurricanes, everything that's been going on, hurricanes in Idaho, you know, everything. But it's not going on so many things, one after the other, in any other country but the United States right now, which we've never experienced before, at least in our lifetime, you know, and it has to be the collective consciousness of where we're, you know, this is like either see where we're going and change it,
yeah,
and get rid of the fear and the hate and all that, because cause and effect, look what's going on all around us.
Yeah.
So it's a major effect of what's happening in the country.
I know.
But it's going to be fine.
So I wanted to opine about the hurricane and the earthquakes and so forth. Does everyone get that? Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Rhonda, you okay?
Yeah.
Because you just looked this way, and I thought, what's going on in that mind right there?
Okay.
You okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So let's start with miracle principles together. And I think that, and you will be here in just a few moments as well, but I think that we left with him with 27, so we're 28.
Yeah.
And I just make sure I've got a pen here somewhere.
There's your highlighter.
Okay, that'll work.
You're sitting on your pen, I just saw
I'm
it
sitting
right
on it.
behind you.
There it is. Thank you. Okay. And the other thing, too, I have read this before, and I have highlighted things from it. So I said to myself, I don't need to reread this before the class because I'm going to see it fresh again, and then I can give my perspective. So right now in Principle 28 and A Course in Miracles, based on the handwritten notes of Helen Schuckman, is what we're using. And by the way, we do this, I want to remind everybody, by the way, October 1st, Unity of Stewart with Reverend Jude Denning and John Pilecki. We're going to be there, okay, in the afternoon, doing a workshop, 2 Voices, 2 Choices. In this powerful and interactive workshop, you will learn. So we'll put this on the comments below afterwards, and make sure you got that. And, okay, so let's go through this. And Rhonda, could you come here for just a moment? And I'll make sure that, you're off of, got it.
Not
Here.
in the witness protection program.
No, you're fine. You're good here. And just read a couple of paragraphs here, and then maybe we'll do the rest.
Okay. Miracles are a means of organizing different levels of awareness. Miracles come from the below conscious, subconscious level. Revelations come from the above conscious, superconscious level. The conscious level is in between and reacts to either subconscious or superconscious impulses in varying ratios. Freud was right about this basic classification, but wrong about the names. He was also right that the content of consciousness is fleeting. Consciousness is the level which engages in the world and is capable of responding both to external and internal impulses. Having no impulses from itself and being primarily a mechanism for inducing response, it can be very wrong. For example, if the identification is with the body, consciousness may distort superconsciousness impulses by denying their source and seeking their impact in the orgasm. Okay?
No, don't worry.
Right?
We're going to talk about it.
No, I thought I said it wrong.
Yeah.
This is the result of mistaken identity. If you will look at the effects of revelation, you will see that there are some similarities in the experiential results, but hardly in content.
Okay, a couple of things here. First of all, Robert Perry gave a footnote here on 53 and 54. 53 says, from paragraph 2 of Principle 28, this paragraph introduces a view of the mind that is taught in the first 4 chapters of the text. In this view, the mind has 3 levels, with the conscious level sandwiched in between the superconscious, heavenly level, and the subconscious level. The subconscious level is then in itself divided into 2 layers. A superficial layer filled with the impulses of this world, and a deeper layer filled with the impulse to miracles. So a few things here, so we understand this, and then we'll finish through this principle. So we've got 3 levels here. Superconscious, conscious, which is fleeting, and then we have the subconscious. Okay. The subconscious mind, this is where all of the miracles come from, the subconscious. Do you know why miracles come from the subconscious and not the conscious or the superconscious? Okay. Where do we push the darkness to? We press them, right? We push them into what? The subconscious. So where do the miracles come from? Where do the light comes from? The light will dissipate the darkness when we are aware of it and when it has some activity and energy. So this occurs in the subconscious mind because that is where the level of darkness is. Do you see this?
Yeah.
So the miracles are coming from the subconscious, the darkness, to do what? To bring some light to it. Okay. And it's done from time to time and not generally persistently, because that would be too much to really take it. So it has to be done gently. Okay, so you've got the subconscious, the conscious, which is fleeting. Okay, from time to time, it's fleeting because it's tethered to the voice of fear. And then you have the heavenly level in the super conscious. Okay, all right, yeah, you got that?
I'm listening to you.
Okay, now you brought sex again.
Yeah.
I know, back to our awareness. And before
I get right to the orgasm too.
Yes, look, it's really important that we talk about sex because Jesus gave an instruction to Helen and said, look, the instruction for sex has to be an integral part of every student that's going through A Course in Miracles. So, where it says here, for example, if the identification is with the body, consciousness may distort superconscious impulses by denying their source and seeking their impact in the orgasm. Now, I mentioned this dynamic yesterday to a couple of friends in Miami yesterday. And I said, look, this is what's happening here, because one individual was having difficulty in really understanding why this person does with his thoughts of lust, for instance, okay? So let me really be very clear about this, as I was yesterday. What we are experiencing right now from the divine is an impulse, okay? A desire to become one with our source, to remember that. You say, where does the desire come from? It comes from a desire as well to connect again where we are at home in reality, but in dreams elsewhere, okay? So we have a desire. Now, that divine impulse from God, from our source, is beautiful. So when you meet a person, for instance, and, you know, your heart is beating, and that is beautiful, and that is valid. What happens, however, is the voice of fear comes up and begins to capture it, to contain it, to own it, to label it, to restrict it.
The ego?
The ego. The voice of fear. Like, what? I'm experiencing the love of God? That's impossible. So I like it so much, I need to contain it. I need to box it, right? Because that's the tendency of the ego that is founded by fear. Fear of any kind in a relationship will always bring contraction. Will bring constriction. Will bring you to limitation. It will try to strangle you. Okay? You're experiencing the love of God, but then all of a sudden, the voice of fear comes up and says, no. Okay.
So true.
Yeah, and that's when you tense up physically.
Right. So then, when I have what the ego, what the divine has given to me, the love of God, fully, vibrantly in my life, the temptation is to bring it to the small level, to contain it. So then the ego would say in that relationship, the purpose of that relationship is an end, not a means to an end. If I'm in a relationship with you, Rhonda, for instance, then I'll be happy. Then I'll experiencing the love of God. That is BS. And everybody knows at the deepest part of their mind that it is true. So I'll say it a different way. Then the ego then tries to misinterpret what God has given us as something else. Okay? Something temporary. So then it wants to take what is naturally temporal in time and space and make it permanent, and what is naturally permanent with love to make it temporary. You see the difference there? Okay. This is why this says this is the result of mistaken identity. If you will look at the effects of revelation, you will see that there are some similarities in the experiential results, but hardly in the content. And the footnote from Robert says, this originally began, if you will look back at the description of the effects of revelation, this seems to refer to Helen's original description of her revelation. The impact of this was incredibly intense, like a great burst of unexpected clarity. It was briefly so compelling that it seemed as though there was something else at all. The whole world just disappeared. Okay. I don't want to be egotistical here, because the question is, have you experienced revelation? And I'm going to say, yes, I have experienced that. And what Helen experienced as well is a feeling of that the world is disappearing, that the world recedes and something else within you steps forward. Okay, so you're not losing anything in the process. When I read that just now, I immediately thought of how I created the Academy of Spiritual Awakening. I went to a gala in Miami with Unity on the Bay, and I was with a fellow who I love very deeply, and we had a wonderful time. And then the next morning, I'm in my apartment in Coconut Grove, and I felt exactly what Helen was experiencing as well. An expansive feeling of love that was palpable. It wasn't sexual, it was holy.
Yeah.
Holy, 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 holy.
There are no words.
None.
Yeah.
And it was so incredible. At that moment, I said, okay, I don't know what this is, but tell me, what should I do? And the voice arises then and says, you have to take the course online. Make it virtual, interactive, and online. And I did it. I was like, okay. I said, I did say this. I said, I need a sign that this is true. And then I turned the TV on, and at the moment I did, Jeb Bush at that time was on TV saying, everything that we are doing in terms of education has to be online, virtual, and virtual. And I was like, what? So that, for me, was the
Quick
reason.
sign.
You're
Wow.
right. You know, and I have to really remember that, too, because I was talking to the cooperative on Sunday, and we talked about our own frustrations, you know, with students and so forth, because we have a wonderful message, you know. We want to extend it. And sometimes it goes flat. And my response was, hey, you know, I have to remember what was given to me 7 years ago or 8 years ago. It's really online, because that's when you're going to really extend fully the message that you want to deliver to the world. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's the
Yeah.
word, sure.
So any questions about that? No? Okay.
That was beautiful.
Okay, so let me just say one more thing. You mentioned the word orgasm. Okay. What Helen experienced was a physical representation of a... Okay, let me just say, it's very difficult to use the word orgasm properly. So people are experiencing the physical orgasm, what really they are experiencing a spiritual orgasm
Totally get it.
of the love of God. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yes, absolutely.
This is why relationships, when given under the guidance and the leadership of the Holy Spirit, it's less heavy. It's light. It's more playful.
So it's-
There's no expectations, no agendas. You're in the present moment. And you are, you know, I was just having coffee yesterday or 2 days ago by a friend, and he said to me, what are you experiencing when you meet a guy or a girl that you really feel connected with and so forth? And I said to him, I said, every single time I think about this, I think that I'm bathing in light with that person. That's it. So we really want to experience ourselves in a way then that we honor the sacred nature of what is happening, that we are interacting with the mind of Christ. And with perfect vision, you will see it plainly, and you know this
And you
well
will
as you're
feel
going
it.
through. You will feel it too. So the world then, at that moment, begins to recede. And reality then begins to
time, no
take
space.
its place. So, it's so wonderful when you begin to act accordingly, when you understand who you are in terms of your identity. Okay? Does everyone understand about that?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
can you go
totally.
4, 5, 6, and 7?
Yes.
Okay.
Revelations induce complete but temporary suspension of doubt and fear. They represent the original form of communication between God and his sons before the intrusion of fire and ice made this impossible. It should be noted that they involve an extremely personal sense of closeness to creation, which human beings try to find in sexual relationships. This confusion is responsible for the depression and fear which are often associated with sex. Sex frequently involves lack of love, but revelation is purely a love experience. Physical closeness cannot achieve this. As was said before, the subconscious impulses properly induce miracles, which are interpersonal and result in closeness to others. This can be misunderstood by a personally willful consciousness as an impulse towards sexual gratification. Revelation unites you directly with God. Miracles unite you directly with others. Neither emanates from consciousness, but both are experienced there. This is essential because consciousness is the state which produces action, though it does not inspire it. You are free to believe what you choose. What you do attests to what you believe. The deeper levels of your subconscious always contain the impulse to miracles, but you are free to fill its superficial levels, which are closer to consciousness, with the impulses of this world, and to identify yourself with them. This results in denying yourself access to the miracle level underneath. In conscious actions, then, your interpersonal relationships also become superficial, and miracle-inspired relating becomes impossible.
Okay. I'm going to just give you my perspective on the last paragraph because it's right here in my lips. Which you are closer to consciousness with the impulses of this world and to identify yourself with them. This results in denying yourself access to the miracle level underneath. Now we're talking about sex again here. I think the first time we were talking about sex, you were there, right? I
You're brought it back again.
Yeah. So look, this is an easy way to understand this. And I said it to a person yesterday because we were talking about sex and we were making the distinction between the impulses coming from the divine within us and the physical impulses. And he said, how does this outpicture itself in your life? And I said, it's real easy. When you guys know this too, that you're going to meet people who are in love with you, right? Okay. You find relationships in which you are in love with them. Okay. But when we understand that really what is happening is not within the level of physicality, what is happening is in the level of mind. So then, I can say, for instance, I'm not in love with your body. I'm in love with your mind. I'm in love with your spirit. And when I connect with that, the rest will take care of itself.
Right.
I don't have to worry about pushing sex to anybody or getting it.
Just let go.
Just for the record. And I'm not here to get. Here's the other way of looking at it. It's a difference between looking at the world and saying, or a person and saying, what can I get, as opposed to, what can I give? What can I give in this moment? That is done at the level of the mind, not in the level of the body. There's a huge difference, and this is why I have said earlier this evening, it's a difference between seeing a body there as an end instead of seeing it as a means to an end. Okay? Does that make sense? Any questions about that?
Totally
That was
different.
great, yeah.
Okay, good. And hello, hippie Helen, who's saying hello to us here. Okay, let me make sure I've got any other questions here online. Do you guys have any questions about this?
No.
Okay. Do you understand the differences between your impulse to drive impulses with sex or your holiness? That's it.
Yeah.
It's a difference between sexuality and holiness.
I think that's something that unless somebody has experienced both,
Yeah.
will not get it until they experience both, because the experience is so vastly.
Give me one moment here, because I'm wondering whether we're even online here. Because I'm
going to go on.
well, it
and
doesn't really matter.
see. I can go on and see here.
But just to check whether we're on or not. But it says 31 minutes, so I guess we are. I don't know. Maybe Aaron's iPad is not working
Do
right.
you have Wi-Fi here?
Yeah, we have Wi-Fi and everything. So we shall see. And I know that Aaron is taking a nap. So
Well, I'm going.
Okay.
to check.
One thing I wanted to bring
Yeah.
up is, what you just said, I've experienced it in both ways. As I'm studying and I'm reading and devotions first thing in the morning, and I come out and I have glimpses of revelation too, not to be in my ego or anything, but just that feeling of oneness with
Yeah.
all. And I can be in that way, and somebody can come up, I can feel that toward the other person. But if that other person happens to be, a male or somebody that I think that my ego will step in and say, oh, that person's taking it the wrong way. They're going to think you're flirting with
That
you
fear.
or whatever. And then that's where you were talking about earlier, that it tries to strangle you, and it's the upside down perception of, I was in the place of holiness and feeling one with that person and feeling love, and then the ego stepped in and said, oh, remember, you were hurt, 10 years ago, and if you're not interested, and they might take this the wrong way, or they might
This
be
whole
thinking in
dialogue
the
goes
physical level as opposed to the oneness. It's like, I get what you were saying about the strangle, and that it blocks.
Yes.
It blocks the energy. The Holy Spirit is
Shuts
moving
you
through
down.
me, and I'm extending love, but then I block it back up.
So we would have to mention then, hey you all,
Hi.
hey.
How are you?
So what we are referring to, by the way, and if we're not online, I'll redo it tomorrow morning by itself, and that's fine. I've done that before.
Get on.
So, Lori, so then what we are really referring to is fear.
Fear,
Right.
yeah.
So when that arises,
Mm-hmm.
it will constrict and contract your identity. And I really want to mention this as well, because this is a pattern in relationships that I'm doing with couples.
Mm-hmm.
So, or especially individual people when they are having difficulty in their relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a pattern in which a person experiences. They say, "Hey, Kevin, why do I keep bringing the same kind of people in my awareness, into my existence?" And my answer is, until you have fully released that person and forgiven that person, you're going to repeat it over and over and over again. So that repeated pattern is going to happen, but it happens because of fear. Because just what you just said there, you think that you're going to recreate another relationship. Guess what? You're exactly doing that. And unless you change your interaction with that person, you're going to experience the same result that you've had experienced in the past. You have to change the way you look at your relationship. So there's one thing in A Course in Miracles that I have to remind myself almost every day, and it's this. I have done this thing, and it is this that I would undo. The reason is this, is I acknowledge that I myself have made mistakes in the past in my relationships. The temptation is want to blame everybody else for what occurred for that tortured relationship that I was in. Because that was his problem. That was her issue, not mine. So when I admit to myself, I have done this thing, I have either through my miscreation or my creation, I have done this, and I will then undo it, because I first have to acknowledge the ownership of my participation within that relationship. Look, I'm in a beautiful relationship with Aaron, right, for 17 years. Have we had moments that were tortured? Of course. Every relationship would experience this. The difference is this. We are not bound by the social norms of expectations and agendas and chains and enslaved way of interacting in our relationships that makes the relationship go south. Okay? Because people are magnifying form and minimizing content. That's why most couples who say to me, why did our huge, wonderful wedding that was so beautiful and big and wonderful? It's because it was too much. Less is more. And when we magnify the form, you ignore the gift and the content that has been given to
That's
us.
so true.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hi, you.
Excellent?
Excellent.
Good. Did Russell sold his car?
Yes, and yeah. Well, it was actually a giveaway. But yeah, and then we had to call the tow truck because the car wouldn't start.
It's just been one thing after the other. You're not
We
alone.
knew
Yeah.
there was some issues with it, and so but we do have AAA, and so we got the car started. Then the guy that we're giving the car to, he turned the car off. And it's like, oops, so it won't start. So anyway, we just had it towed to his place, so that's why it took me so long.
Oh, no
you
worries,
just
no
went
worries.
through this.
Hmm?
Oh, I didn't. You just
I
went
just
through
went
this.
through this.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And he texted me through it.
Spectacular.
Okay, let's go. Do you all understand Principle 28? I think we are on now. We've got people watching now. So, Principle 29. Let's start with that. But before we do that, any questions about that?
No.
Sex? Any problems with sex?
No.
No? Good. Good. We're good to go then. Go ahead. 29. I guess I'll do the first. There's only 3. Let me do this one here. Miracles are a way of earning release from fear. Revelation induces a state in which fear has already been abolished. Miracles are thus a means, revelations are an end. In this sense, they work together. Miracles do not depend on revelation. These induce it. You are quite capable of miracles already, even if you may be still too fearful for revelation. Revelation will occur after you engage at the visionary level in a process of denying fear. Revelation is intensely personal and is actually not translatable into conscious content at all. That is why any attempt to describe it in words is usually incomprehensible. There, I said the word. Yay!
Yeah.
Even to the writer himself at another time. This is why the book of Revelation is essentially incomprehensible. Revelation induces only experience. Miracles, on the other hand, induce interpersonal action. In the end, these are more useful because of their impersonal nature. In this phase of learning, working miracles is more valuable because freedom from fear cannot be thrust upon you. The experience cannot last. Miracles, therefore, are the essential course of action for everyone. Okay, a few things here. I want everyone to know the dynamic of the miracle and the revelation. If I had to describe it, which this just said, it's incapable of describing it to another person. For me, experientially, it is a place where time and space is irrelevant and immaterial and is non-existent. It is essentially us stepping into the eternal, timeless now. So, yesterday, I'll give you an example. Because every time I'm driving to Miami or to Atlanta during the hurricane with Chris, first of all, I'm seeing the mind of Christ there, regardless of how it looks, period. And then a feeling, an experiential feeling accompanies it. And the feeling is that you are in a world, the whole world is an altar. That's what it feels like. Like, you know, if you're in a Catholic church, for instance, and you're in an altar and you feel holy, right? Well, the same is true when you experience somewhat revelation. Like, oh, this is not only the light, but it's also holy, and it's palpable. It's intense in its brilliance. So, you know, this is why it's important to understand that what we are experiencing right now is holy. And so we approach each one as we would an altar dedicated unto God the Father and to God the Son. Because that is what you are interacting with. The Christ. So it may rear its ugly face from time to time, but the Urantia actually refers to this. It says, look, the egoic mind sees the world this way. It sees a few people full of light with a background of darkness behind them. But in reality, the really way that you can interact with the world is seeing the background as light. And from time to time, bodies full of the shadows of darkness and fear, which you can easily dismiss when it arises. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
So, look, I want to say one more thing. There is a freaking reason why I put this up, and I bet I basically go to it almost every day. Jesus helped me to see my brother or my sister, blank, as he or she really is, and thus release both him and me. So when that occurs, and that arises, it happened today, and immediately the default is, hey Jesus, help me to see my blank, my brother or my sister, as he or she really is in this moment, and then thus release both of us together. Let me say it this way. Every time you see sin within your brothers or sister, but keeps us both in hell. Okay? Okay. You have a question, Yule?
No, it's just, I just have to keep reminding myself of that, in all circumstances. I mean, even, so Russell had his tooth pulled, and, I was ready to get in the car and go, and, but I realized, he shouldn't be dealing with that. And I said to him, I know it's not your fault that you didn't take care of your teeth. And so I had,
Like
so
you couldn't be mad at him for it.
yeah, and I have, in the past, built up, you should have done this, you should have done that, you should have taken better care of yourself. But I really, I can't do that because,
You can't
that's,
control it.
yeah, I can't control it. So I, stayed at home, waited, like I said, on the tow truck guy, because who wants to be in pain and dealing with, going up and down stairs and dealing with, all of that. So it's like, I just
Yeah.
stayed, I said, it's okay.
Did
You
what
know,
had to do.
Yule, I love that you are saying this because it is, I think, the most important thing that we understand. There's a temptation to try to attempt to correct another or improve another person. That is useless. It just is. Number one, all of this is already over and done with. It's in the past. It's an effect. So for me to try to improve you or correct you or give you some recommendations or whatever without your solicitation of it, which happens, right? So it's important then for you to understand the statement. I have accepted all things as they are right now. I accept Russell as he is right now. I had a difficult moment with one person who's having an angst reaction to the hurricane. So I was looking at it and I said, oh yes, I see that energy occurring in my field of awareness, but I can choose again. I can choose again because there's a temptation here to say, right? To correct that other person, quote unquote, correct them. When in fact, the default is always, okay, I accept all things as they are, because the moment that you mentioned it one time is the moment that you and him are on a battlefield immediately. This is the first law of chaos, right? That my values, my way of looking at my teeth, the way I navigate through my teeth is different than you. Not only is it different than you, it's better. Okay, so what was level is now unlevel. And we're on the battlefield. So whenever we look into our world and see something that needs to be immediately corrected, we have to look at our own psyche to say, hey, this is a result of my own notion that I am broken, that I need to be corrected, that I could do better, and that what I am right now is not enough. So we do that when we project to other people, and we blame other people for what is experiencing in our own psyches themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Total.
Okay, good.
So I look at it as, I now learn from other people's, I don't want to say mistakes, whatever you do that I feel is not the way I would want to do it, I have to make sure that I, take care of my teeth.
You're right.
So I don't go
This
there.
is true. I'm not saying that you shouldn't.
Oh, exactly.
It
But
brings more
you can
awareness
see
to
that
the word.
person
Yeah.
as merely having a call to help
Right.
or a call to help, to love. So the egoic way of remedying that is to behaviorally try to correct it, when in fact the error is not occurring here at the level of behavior, it's occurring at the level of the mind. This is where the error occurs, in the mind, not in the world of effect. Okay?
So how about
yeah.
this? So like in that whole instance,
Mhm.
so instead of saying, oh, you should have taken better care of Pete, you could say to yourself, if you felt that way, like, oh, turn a mirror to me, all right, maybe I should be taking care of it. So then you just can take better care of your own teeth That's the only thing you can do to take care of it.
The
Take care of
mirror.
your own teeth. And then if the other person that's in your that lives around you and stuff, that's their choice to do either take care of their own teeth or not.
Right, you're on two paths
The
there.
mirror.
Number one. But I just, let me say it a different way. We will continue to project upon others what remains to be unhealed and unforgiven in our own minds.
So that's the opportunity
Yeah,
right there.
right. Look, I see that my brother or my sister has an opportunity to change the way their appearance. But look at myself. Is there something that is missing? It's this whole thing, this notion that we carry around in our mentality that says something is missing here. Right? Something is missing there, Russell. Something is missing, Lori, Rhonda, whatever. It's that brings suffering. It's that first step that something is not good. And all of judgment occurs when we admit that this is not right to be here, right? But when we do that, we deny the fact that we have already participated in a world, a result of my own internal decisions, choices, and so forth that I'm doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Look, we got 8 minutes left. Let's go 29 and 30, and then next week we can start 31 and so forth. Before we do that, I want to ask you guys a question too. You know, I really like the interaction that we are having online and physically as well. Is that okay with everybody? Does anybody recommend any changes or anything I need to do differently?
Online?
Yeah, online, physically, here, everything good? Okay. Because I really want to know everything. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is because I love this book so much. I'm teaching every month at Unity on the Bay, starting in December. And I'm doing A Course in Miracles generally anyway, but I really want to do
It's
this one.
amazing how it goes hand in hand with it.
Unbelievable.
And it deeper, and it makes it easier for me.
It makes it easier to really swallow these things.
It's one of those
So for those of you who are, and you can get it on Kindle for
It was $9.99.
$9.99 on Kindle, folks. The Way of Mastery, and it really covers the way of the heart, the way of transformation, and the way of knowing. So I was thinking a way of maybe I can combine both things. Maybe doing this individually online, and this just doing on Thursday here without online. Does that work for everybody? Or just let me know what you think.
Wait, say that again?
So in other words, like on Monday night or Wednesday or whatever, I can just go online and just go through a way of mastery, not reading it, but really giving my perspective about it. And then on Thursday night, not doing online here and just being more private. But I just wanted to know if this is unacceptable in any way, shape, or form, let me know. And we can just...
Fine. with
Nobody agrees with you. That's good,
Well,
actually. That's what my inclination is that this is okay just the way it is. But again, you know, one of my dear friends mentioned the possibility of it, and so it was a pedal placed within my pool of awareness. And I was like, am I aware of this or not? You know, because it's been a really nice ride, and I want to continue that. So I just wanted to make sure
Continue?
I was... Well, continue
With
in the form that I'm using it presently, which I'm really happy with that. So
Have you
anyway,
had people who were coming that are sort of turned off to the Facebook Live thing?
yeah. And look, I know that people are, and that's fine. Look,
good.
this happens to a lot of people. It took me a lot just to be on this.
Right.
But again, this was the instruction that was given to me, so I had to follow it. and I'm doing it. And if nobody shows up, then that's fine. I can just communicate it individually, and I don't care. So
Around the world.
I just told them, I said, look, let me just talk to the students to make sure that there was anything wrong or inappropriate that was done. So everybody that I have mentioned said, no, continue doing what you're doing. And I said, okay, but trust me, it was very persistent. It took me about 2 days to let it go, okay, to make sure I was on the right path there. Okay, principle 29, miracles are a way of earning. Oh, I just read that.
You just read that.
Okay.
Next is 30.
30. Let's do 30 and 31. We'll probably do that.
Oh, okay.
Can we go like 5 minutes more? Because we started like
Yeah.
5 minutes after.
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
Miracles praise God through you. They praise God by honoring His creations, affirming their perfection. They heal because they deny body identification and affirm spirit identification. By perceiving the spirit, they adjust the levels and see them in proper alignment. This places the spirit at the center where minds can communicate directly.
Okay, wow. This
There's a
principle, oh my God. Okay. What? You're looking at me kind of strange. Are you okay?
I'm great.
Okay. Let me just say it, folks. Man, I love it so much. When you begin to release your identification to your body and see it for what it really is, a pile of dust, okay? Now, in reality, it is a learning and teaching device. That's fine. You're going to learn a lot of things through it, and you're going to teach a lot of things through it as well. But it is essentially neutral, okay? When you bring too much magnification to it, that's when you go south. But when you instead tether yourself to your spirit identity, what happens to your mind as a result? Your mind begins to shift. And you begin an experience in which you align your thoughts with the thoughts of God. That you align your will to the will of God. So you're not here to manipulate, or orchestrate people or time and space to get a result. Because you've already got it. By simply changing your mind. This is why there's two phases of the miracle. The first phase of the miracle is to understand that the miracle is a shift in perception from a fearful way of looking at something to a loving way. Here's the second phase. When that shift occurs, that realignment occurs mentally, then behaviorally, you begin to express yourself with the love of God. Okay? You understand that you're not Kevin Rice. You are form. You are God's love in form manifesting. That's it. That you have no beginning nor ending at all. You are infinite. You are eternal. And you are connecting to everyone and everything and your source. And that your only purpose, your only goal in this life is not to gain anything in this world, but to instead to extend the love and the light of God to a world that is in desperate need of it. Okay, so that's how you begin to express behaviorally. See, you know, my students used to tell me, oh, look, as long as I shift my perception, I can still be a jerk. Wrong. Your behavior will adjust itself in alignment with your changing perception about everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But again, all of correction occurs in the level of mind. It does not occur in the level of effect or time and space. That's why we live and move and abide in the eternal timeless now. This is where our confidence comes from. This is where our belief comes from. It's where our conviction comes from, right? Not time and space, but reality that is just beyond it, a step ahead, or a step beyond, rather. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I want everyone to understand this, why miracles praise God through you. My mother used to say to me, and I thought it used to be egotistical that she would say this, but she would say, Kevin, I am God's hand extended to you. And she would say, well, what about me? And what am I? Well, what is, your sisters and your brothers? But she said, no, this is a matter of belief. It's a matter of connection. That when you align your thoughts with the thought of God, then you begin itself to become the extension of God's hand to the world that needs it. Does that make sense?
Beautiful. What a wise
I love my miss. I love and miss my mom so much.
Well, she's smiling right now because she's
I think
hearing
so.
you
I
right
don't
now.
know. Yeah, I know.
Was she a Course in Miracles student before you?
Oh, no. You know what? Can I get a response to you on this there?
Yeah.
Okay. So I first had A Course in Miracles when I was 20, and I would hide it from my mother and my father, okay, because I converted all of them to fundamentalist Christianity, and then I left it. So,
Sorry.
so I would go and I would literally cover the course at the time, which was smaller, with another Bible, a bigger one. And then about 6 months after doing the lessons every day, and my mom said, Kevin, you are so different now. What happened here? And I just refrained immediately. And then she kept pressing me. You're so peaceful. You're so full of happiness. What happened? I said, Mom, it's A Course in Miracles. And she didn't know what that was. And then later in the week, she turned on the TV on KYFC TV 50, where I used to have a TV show there. And then a minister was talking about A Course in Miracles and said, this is a cult, and blah, blah, blah. And my mom was like, and then she was extremely alarmed by this whole thing. But I practiced my principles through it, and I accepted all things as they are, not to correct her, not to push it onto her or whatever, to accept it. And when I did, her perception about the whole course became totally different. And where now that I don't think that my mother ever, or my sisters anymore, think that I'm going to go to hell in a basket with everybody else. But, that there's something within me, some light somewhere within my psyche. Okay, we got 2 minutes left here. So, you know what? I'm going to open this one time and read one sentence, okay? Here we go. I don't even know where it is. Oh, this one. I've got a little star right next to it. So let's just read this paragraph here. Look well, then, upon your parents, your siblings, your mates, and your friends. Not one of them holds the power to bring love to you. So what are you trying to get from them? Why do you ever insist that another ought to be conformed to what you believe you need? It is futile, 100%, absolutely, positively futile, to seek love in relationship with anything or anyone. It is, however, quite appropriate to extend love in each relationship, with everyone and everything. But the extension of that love requires that you have awakened to the truth that the only relationship that truly holds value is the relationship between you as the soul and God as your creator. Wow. Imagine a light bulb in one of your fixtures that looks out from its little filaments and says, well, I hope the person that just walked in the door is the right one. If I could just reach out and grab them, maybe my own light would come on. Is it not a lot easier to simply take the cord and plug it to the right socket? How many times are you going to insist on trying to plug your cord into the wrong socket? Well, that one doesn't work. I'll try this body. I'll try this person. I'll try this career, not getting very much juice from that either. And then you get angry because it is not giving you enough juice, or it gave you enough juice yesterday, but not today. So it must be its fault. There is one little tiny socket in which you can plug your cord. It is the only one that it fits in, and is the only socket wired to bring you the flowing and living waters of grace. That socket dwells only within your heart, not the physical heart, but that which is symbolized by the physical heart, the core of your own being. But how many times in each day do you check to see that the cord is still plugged in? How many times do you remember to ask yourself, is my commitment to love, or is my commitment to fear? Fear is the act of disconnecting your cord from the only socket that can truly satisfy you, and running about trying to plug it in to somebody else's or something else's. I would ask you to consider this one question. As you look upon the whole of your experience, has it ever worked? Can it ever work? Imagine trying to hold flowing water in the palm of your hand by squeezing the fingers together. How much are you left with? Does it not just run through your fingers no matter how hard you try? It finds the little holes and it flows away. You open your hand and there is not enough left there to wet the tongue. Yet each time you have looked upon another, whether parent or sibling or friend or mate or teacher or whatever physical person or object, and tried to plug into that socket to get the juice you believe you need, that is just what you are doing. And you literally end up squeezing the life out of your relationship itself.
Wow.
Boom!
I gotta get that book.
Oh my God, folks, this is so beautiful, and it just
You
wants to cry.
You just posted
Makes me wanna
something
cry,
recently
I know.
this week. Happiness is an inside job.
Yeah, happiness is an
That's it.
inside job.
Wow, that's really raw and powerful.
This
So, look.
perspective in this book, I
Love
think
it.
for you to do this online, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Everybody should, because this is one of those books that
Unbelievable.
hits you. Like sometimes there's maybe a book a decade or every so often that comes
Yeah.
your way
Right.
that so many relate to on such a level.
Yeah.
This is one of those.
Yeah, it's
books.
unbelievable. Look, I'm
The way
skeptical
he
about anything
expresses.
that is channeled.
And it goes right.
And this
with
is the only one that is so in alignment with this course.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I know this version of it just was published this year, and I knew the Urtax years ago, but nobody really knew it in the 80s. And this was done in the 80s, and now it is using the terms that were not in the previous versions of this, but is in this version, using, for instance, learning and a teaching device as the body, using those exact words. This is not in the other versions at all. And other, I think it mentioned the Chalice of Atonement, which is in this version as well as other phrases. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the same voice with another channel, that's fine. Another personality that's more forceful and intimate and palpable.
another perspective.
Yeah.
Of the same
So
thing.
definitely, folks, I would recommend The Way of Mastery from the Shanti Christo Foundation. It's unbelievable. And it's the best $30 you can ever spend.
Thank you, Roberta.
Right there. So thank you so much, Roberta. And I love you all so much. And we're going to end here. And if you guys want to talk a little bit more, we can. I don't want to push the river with you guys either. And I love you so much. You know
We
this?
love you too.
And it's easily to see the Christ mind expressing itself easily. And it's really important that we understand as well the holiness of our interaction with everybody. Okay? So, and if no one has told you today that they love you, allow us to be the first. We love you.